Balance changes are coming to Clash of Clans next week, so let's run you through all of the numbers. I even have some hit rate graphs to share with you, but let's start with the blog post where they announced this change. Back in May, we said we'd keep a close eye on the Dragon Duke and the air meta. This is that follow-up. We can consider this a quick intermission, a focused look on the Town Hall 18 meta. That is what's changing. So right now, Dragon armies, in particularly the Dragon Duke and the Dragon Rider, are used in 20% of Town Hall 18 through 18 war attacks. There is then the Thrower army, which also makes up 20% of the 18v18 war attacks, so 40% of attacks just from these two armies, and that is why they are trying to broaden the meta a little bit. They say that Electro Dragons are struggling against popular war armies, and the Meteor Golems have fallen off quite a lot following the nerf that they made previously, which seemingly they overcooked. The goal of this balance change is to trim some of the clearest outliers to try and broaden the diversity in strategies, but they are being careful because a new crafted defense season is starting soon, and that will naturally shift the base building, army choices, etc., depending on which defenses we get in that season. When we take a look at some of the hit rates, specifically talking the Dragon Duke and Dragon Rider first, you can notice that for Town Hall 18v18 war attacks, the Dragon Duke use rate has just continued to skyrocket up over and is now at an all-time high of 57.9% of attacks. If we compare that though to war attacks and to legend attacks, the date ranges are slightly different in these charts. The Dragon Duke is 99.6% use rate in Legend 1. What is that, like one player not using the Dragon Duke? It's also interesting to see the difference in some of the other troops. So the Electro Dragons, for example, nearly 20% use rate this is when you are looking at war attacks, but is 0.7% when you look at Legend 1. So the buffs that we will be having to the Electro Dragon will help out more of the casual, broad Town Hall 18 player base, but I doubt it's going to make that big of an impact to the Legend League situation, given the use rate is so low. I guess time will tell on that one, but it is also interesting to see such a difference in the Super Bowlers for Legend 1. Nearly 50% of attacks using the Super Bowler, and commonly that is with the Dragon Duke charge to open, so some of the nerfs coming to the Dragon Duke charge might help with that. But the Druid, a little bit more use rate in Legend, with it being a little bit more tactful, and that will be one of the troops getting a buff as well. I also asked the team, could you share a chart of use rate and hit rate of the Meteor Golems, because they're saying they overcooked the nerf. Now, when we look at the top chart, the use rate, you can see it peaked almost at 40%. It felt more than that when Town Hall 18 released, but now you can notice that rapid decline following the different nerfs, to now it's actually only used in about 6% of Town Hall 18 versus 18 war attacks. When you also look at the hit rate, and you have to consider if the use rate is higher, the success rate is often a bit lower as well because of the volume of attacks, but here you can see the hit rate, which is the 3-star success, also declining from the Meteor Golems during this time, to the fact where now they are below the field average, which is essentially just the average of all attack strategies. Use rate and hit rate of the Dragon Riders, though, you can see steadily increasing, correlating well with the Dragon Duke because naturally they are paired together. So the hit rate now in war attacks of Dragon Riders, 67.3%. When you compare that to other strategies and troops involved with these balance changes, the Super Bowler is the only troop that has a higher hit rate. And whilst the Super Bowlers aren't getting changed, I guess it is because the Dragon Duke, you can notice right there in the third spot, that is the key opener for the Super Bowler attacks. So with that Dragon Duke charge being nerfed, presumably we will see the Super Bowler, which is the follow-up to that strategy, lowering as well. To the bottom of the list, though, you can see where we're getting some of the buffs to the Meteor Golem and the Electro Dragon, where the hit rate much less. So with all that being said, before we go through the rest of the blog to see what it is they're watching in the future and a revert to the Flame Blower and the Rocket Backpack, let's go through the numbers that they are tweaking in order to hopefully have an impact on the meta and the graphs that you just seen. So firstly, the Dragon Duke, there is basically just one change, and it is the damage reduction versus traps. It was reduced from 50% to 40% in a previous balance change. Now that is reducing to 20%. So it means in those Dragon Duke charge attacks where you're turning him invisible, he can still get hit fairly hard from the traps and gives a bit more counterplay. When we look at the triple rate with and without the Dragon Duke, nigh on 25% higher success rate in war attacks when you use the Dragon Duke. That transfers across to the Dragon Rider and the Super Bowler armies. Obviously, those two being high in hit rate do heavily impact the all war attacks army, but so much more success right now if you're using the Dragon Duke, hence the outlier, and where they're aiming to just adjust that balance very slightly. The Dragon Rider itself, not a huge change. This is actually what they had proposed to change the last balance change video that we had, and then they decided to revert and kind of like half the balance changes at that time, and now they've decided actually yes, we should have gone with the nerf we actually announced, and this is it. 100 less hit points, 20 less DPS. You can see it's, 1.67% change of the hit points and not even a 4% change in the damage. That is extrapolated across all of the different Dragon Riders, so there will be a difference, but it's not going to be a huge difference. A bigger change is for the Logger Guardian. This is at all levels. Obviously, it's exclusive to Town Hall 18, but it's a buff and a nerf together to kind of balance things out for a particular set of attacks. The post-hit range in tiles, so after the Logger hits the initial troop, the log will go through to hit troops behind. That range is being decreased by 2 tiles, from 7 to 5 and from 8 to 6. What this means is that it will be less likely, it still can, but it will be less likely to hit healers behind your queen or your ground smash attacks. However, to counteract this, the pushback in tiles, that is when the log initially hits the troop and it pushes that troop back, goes from 1 to 1.5 tiles. So any air troops that are closer to the Logger Guardian will get pushed back that little bit more. So it's trying to nerf the air attacks slightly, or at least make sure that they can buff that particular strategy where it's really frustrating if your healer's just getting wiped, but not indirectly buff all of the air attacks because of that. Moving down to the Electro Dragon, I shared those graphs and these stats, so this might have more of an impact in the casual, shall we say. Maybe Legend players will start testing again with Electro Dragon, since they do get a little bit of a buff. But anyways, they do get more hit points for Town Hall 17 and 18, and a little bit more DPS, again, for both Town Hall 17 and 18. Down to the Meteor Golems, they actually get more of a buff than I was expecting, but I guess this is the thing where when they first nerfed the Meteor Golems, they really only changed like their damage to walls, and it didn't really do anything. And I don't think at that time they wanted to get into the situation they did with the Root Riders, where they just were constantly nerfing it. They just nerfed it from the off to where they thought it should be. But clearly that was too much, to where now they are actually getting almost a 10% increase to the hit points across the board, level 1, 2, and 3. So that is a decent jump. And normally you would take 4 or 5 Meteor Golems into those strategies. So that's a good chunk of hit points. And you also get more hit points to the Meteor Mites. We'll get there. Meteor Golems also get that little bit increase in DPS as well. Not as much of a jump compared to the hit points, because that is more the Meteor Golem's signature. It is a tank out in front of your Archer Queen, who is there to provide the damage behind the Meteor Golems. These changes also kind of echoed into the Meteor Mites as well, nigh on a 10% increase for the hit points of those, when they're obviously like merging apart and then back together, and the DPS equally around about a 5% increase across those 3 different levels. Moving to the last one of the changes, the Druid does get an increase to the healing per second for both Town Hall 17 and 18. It actually gets a greater jump at Town Hall 18, nearly 10% in the healing, but as you saw from the charts, really not used too much, more so in Legend, to be honest, where it is a little bit more of a strategic troop to use and send in at the correct time. So again, just aiming to bring that little bit more diversity to the strategies and make sure that if you do want to use those off-meta options, they're a little bit more viable. Now, the rest of the blog does highlight a couple of things that they are keeping an eye on, potentially for the next round of balance changes, where they say a few things came close but aren't changing this update. Totem Spell, still high on the watch list. Sneezy was also a close call, but with Dragon armies taking multiple hits and the new crafted defense season, they wanted to see where things settled. The Ruin Witch and the Angry Spell, still very new, so we're giving players more time to experiment before making a call. I'm guessing that call would be buffs, particularly for the Ruin Witch, because I don't think many people are integrating them to their armies. Skywagon also being monitored because that was nerfed last time around. And again, I guess since that's an air troop, last time they had small nerfs to all units within a strategy, and then this time a bit more tailored to the Dragon Rider and the Dragon Duke, the powerhouses of strategies, and just seeing where things settle so that they don't have to nerf other things. Important though, they said not changing something doesn't mean we missed it. Sometimes it means we want to see how the rest of the update and the next season changes the meta before pulling another lever. So it is good that they are keeping a close eye on all different aspects of the meta. This one is a bit niche, but the Flameblower and the Rocket Backpack, they had changed the interaction where when you used the Rocket Backpack, the Flameblower would activate first before the Dragon Duke changed to go through the middle of the base. Now that is being reverted because there was some bugs and they can't fix that until there's an actual mandatory update. So it will be coming in the next update, but it's being reverted back to how it was, where the Rocket Backpack will face the Dragon Duke to the middle first, and then the Flameblower will activate. So a little bit easier to use. Looking ahead, that's it for this round. A bite-sized balanced update all about making the current Town Hall 18 meta a little healthier, less concentrated at the top, and a bit more room for underused options and better counterplay for base builders. Keep sending feedback, replays, war results, and honest reactions. They will continue to look at the data and shape how they approach the updates and the balance changes. Clash on the Clash of Clans design team. So some buffs, some nerfs. I know sometimes balance changes can be frustrating, but equally, I do like that they're being a bit more proactive with these. They're sharing a lot more data behind the changes. They never used to do that previously, so thank you so much for that. It lets people understand why changes are being made. And also, I like that they aren't just leaving things way too powerful for too long. They are actually adjusting things so that we can have a healthier meta, but making those small tweaks so that nothing is like nerfed to the ground, and then in the case of the Meteor Golems, having to boost it back up. All they have said for these balance changes is that they will be coming early next week, so look out for those. You can also look out for my first interview in the Judo Sloth talks with the Clash of Clans team. This first one, which should be live tomorrow, I'll link it here on your screen, is with Rafa regarding the hero journey. I'm going to have 5 episodes this year. I hope you will enjoy them, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.